Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and how exactly can you grow your income sources? And by the way, if you think I'm like the average YouTuber that has, for example, like 15 sources of income, the answer is no. I was never really interested in quantity. I was more interested in quality and also just having passive income come in to cover my expenses. Now, I had this very simple formula because again, my goal wasn't to make, for example, $1 billion from the stock market or from real estate or from any of that stuff. My goal was a lot more achievable and simple because I've always understood that if I kind of shoot too high, which is basically what they always tell us, like shoot for the stars and then land on the moon or backwards or whatever it is, I always understood that when you have ambiguous goals like that, you get demotivated and things seem too big, and before you know it, you kind of stop trying. So my goals have always been really small, really achievable, and I kind of just keep climbing. And I always understood that, hey, if I start young and I have 40 to 50 years to keep going and going and going, if I start with these small goals, eventually I'll reach these very big goals eventually. And I'm not really in a rush. So here's a very simple idea I basically had. If I basically wanted to make money from the stock market, the reason was because I wanted my stocks to cover one of my expenses. For example, I had these two big expenses back in the day when I was living in my mom's house, and I thought about this idea, and it was basically I wanted to be able to have passive income to cover my haircuts, which I like haircuts, and I also wanted enough passive income to cover my phone bill. So here's what I would do. I would say, for example, how much money do I spend on haircuts? It was $20 bi-weekly. So that would basically be every month I would spend around like $40. Now, how much would that be annually? Well, the answer was basically times 12. That's around $480. And I would say, well, how much money do I need to have in the stock market so it can pay me enough to cover this and still keep my original capital in there and not take on crazy risks? The answer is very simple. It is not complicated. It's not a lot of math. All you want to do is multiply the annual expense by 25. That is it. So multiply by 25, it was like $12,000. So then I said to myself, well, if I invest $12,000 in the stock market, I can cover my haircuts. Now, what eventually happened was this. I wrote down literally every single bill that I had, not just haircuts, but the food bill, the going out to eat, the buying sneakers, the buying clothes, the shelter costs I would pay some to my mom, whatever. I would write down every single bill and I would basically multiply it to know my annual cost and multiply by 25. And what would happen was a lot of bills I would just try to reduce or fully cut off. Because once I realized that I need $12,000 invested to cover my haircuts, I started to cut my own hair and I stopped going to the barbershop. At the beginning, it was rough, but then I knew how to cut my hair and it looked pretty nice, okay? Now, I did this with a bill that everyone has, including you most likely, and that was my phone bill. I used to pay around like $80 for my phone bill every single month. And I said, well, $80 times 12 is 960. Multiplied by 25 is around $24,000. And I was like, how the heck am I spending so much money? Like, to be able to cover that bill, I'm going to have to invest a ton of money. It's too much. So then I said, well, is there anything out there? So then I found Mint Mobile. By the way, this is not a sponsored video, but it's the truth. It's how it's happened. And I was basically spending on Mint Mobile around $30, okay? And that was a lot better than $24,000 because now, instead of trying to invest $24,000, I would only need to have in my account around $9,000 invested, and things started to look a lot better. Now, eventually, what I calculated was basically I needed to have around $300,000 invested to cover all of my expenses, and that became my big goal. But in the meantime, I had a small goal, little goals, increment goals, just trying to little by little cover every single little bill that I had. And I started to do that. And little by little, I started to reach it. And today I can tell you that my passive income covers every single one of my mandatory necessity expenses. Now that's awesome, okay? And the goal would be to have more, to cover even more stuff, but it's more than enough for me. Now, let's talk about how you can actually grow this yourself and how you can actually do it and how I actually do it, okay? If you guys don't know me, my name is Tommy Bryson. I don't have that many sources of income, by the way. I'm very basic, I'm very simple, and people tend to think I'm boring, but boring works and boring makes money, and I'm not trying to have some excitement future when it comes to making money, because excitement usually means a lot of risk, and risk usually means a lot of waking up and not knowing if you're gonna have money anymore. I don't care for those things. So the very first source of income that I basically have is going to be into stocks. I don't invest into individual stocks. I don't buy Apple and Tesla and I try to pick stocks. I don't do that. I don't invest, for example, into giving my money to a famous person that can basically manage it. No, I do all my own managing. It's very simple. I use a company called Vanguard. I'm also not sponsored by them either, just so you know. And I invest into just one investment, and that is the S&P 500. Now, here's how my understanding, I try to make it work in my head. So this way it's very simple for you to actually understand. For every $100 I put into the S&P 500, this obviously gets me money from my investments growing in value, which gives me capital gains taxes, and my investments that I actually hold, they do things. So they actually earn me interest, and that interest is going to be paid out as dividend, okay? Dividend payments. So I basically get value increase and I also get dividend payout. So how do I look at all this stuff? Well, it's very simple. Well, if I'm investing just into the S&P 500, I can expect to make, from every $100 I invest, I expect to make around $8 to $10 every single year. So I put in $100, I'm expecting to make every single year around $8 to $10 from capital appreciation. On top of that, because my investments also pay out, well, right now they're paying out around 1.49%. So not to use percentages, I basically say in my head, well, for every $100 I invest, it pays me out in dividend around $1.50. That is the idea. So I make $10 from the capital appreciation, and I also make $1.50. Together, that's around $11.50. So to me, that is more than awesome. And you might think that, wow, that's pretty cool, right? That's not bad. But most people don't like that. Most people want to invest $100 and they want to make $100 back. They want to basically make 100% on their money doing very little work. The answer is it's unrealistic. You're going to take a lot of risks, and I'm not interested in that. So for me, earning 10% and getting paid out around 1.49% is more than enough. Now, how would I teach you to go about doing this? The answer is I would only do this once I'm debt free and once I have a fully funded emergency account. Why? Because once you have no debt, you have a lot more cash flow available to you and you have a lot less stress, okay? You don't owe people money. And second, by the way, by debt free, I mean you pay everything off except your mortgage. And then once you have a fully funded emergency account, if you do lose your job, it's not going to cause you to interrupt your investments or, for example, have you take money out of your investments, because you don't want to do that. So here's what I do. I try to invest 10 to 20% of my income every single time I get paid, and I try to grow that over time. Now tell me, how far have you gotten with this, okay? The answer is I make annually around $30,000 from capital appreciation. And on top of that, and that's an estimate, by the way, and on top of that, I make around between $4,000 to $5,000 in dividend payments every single year. And that to me is a lot of cash, like a lot of cash. Because again, it might only sound like I'm just making like $30,000 to $35,000 a year potentially for my investments, but to me, I don't spend that much money at all. If you're curious about how much money I spend per month, the answer is around $924 to be exact. That's the amount of money I need to actually live on my necessities. Now, in reality, I spend around $1,600 to $2,024. I know my numbers because I've been doing a lot more videos on budgeting, so subscribe to the channel so I can teach you how to do that too. But for the most part, I don't spend that much money. I'll tell you more about that later in this video. Now, the second way I actually make money, which is actually pretty cool, and by the way, just to reiterate this, I only invest into the S&P 500. The brokerage I use is basically Vanguard, And I only do it after I'm debt free and I have a fully funded emergency account. And when I do invest, I only try to invest 10 to 20% of my income when I actually do get paid. So if you want to copy me, that's what I basically do. Now, second, I get paid from interest, okay? So interest, a very simple idea of interest is basically you getting paid for somebody having your money. Whether it's I lent my mom $100 and she pays me $2 for every $100 that I have, okay? Or for example, I gave my money to the bank in a CD and now they're paying me X amount of money every single month. Or I have a bond that I basically bought and that bond pays me out some interest also, okay? These are all ways to make interest income, which is pretty cool. Bonds, lending money, for example, with banks and so on. But you're usually going to make less money based on how safe your money is. So if your money's in the bank, because it's super safe in a way, up to 250K, you're not gonna make that much money. If your money's in treasury bills, because it's ultra safe, the safest ever, usually you're not gonna make that much money either, okay? But for me personally, I've gotten to a point where my interest that I actually get for right now, for the next year, because I bought a CD, I'm actually getting paid around $800 every single month. Now, if you remember what I just told you, I spend $924. So basically saying that this one CD pays me enough to cover 86% of all of my bills. So meaning if I lost all access to be able to make money for next year, I just need to come up with like around $100 to around $200 a month in job and doing something, and I'll be just fine, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Now, again, when I'm saying all this stuff, it sounds simple, right? But it is a lot of money. And I want you guys to really understand that. And I really want you guys to understand that this did not happen overnight. I did not inherit money. I got lucky for sure, because there's always a level of luck. But God willing, or God allowing, it's all God that made this possible for the most part. And that's the whole idea, okay? So it took me to get to this point. I would say when I actually had that wow moment, I was around like, it has to be like around 7 to 8 years now. So it's 7 to 8 years to get to this point. But on average, it'll probably take you 20 to 15 years to get to this point. And the average millionaire is around 53 years old. So I'm fully aware that I am an anomaly in the sense that I'm very cheap. I have some cash for the age that I'm at, and I don't have that many wants. And I'm really fine with doing what I'm doing for forever, okay? So in that way, I am an anomaly. But don't feel like you're behind if you're not where I'm at, because I'm not even supposed to be where I'm at, okay? It's called luck. And when you have people that are lucky and they're teaching you something, try to take the principles and apply it to your life and basically try to do your best at it, but know what the true factors are going to be. So you can expect to do something like this within like 15 to 20 years for sure. And that's not bad, because most people retire at 60, 65, and they don't have anything to show for it. So if you can do this in 15 to 20 years, or maybe 10 years if you're obsessed, which I don't recommend because there's a lot of sacrifice to that. And I took major L's because of that sacrifice mentality. I regret it. It's just better to go slow and steady and enjoy life along the way. Now, the third source of income that I actually have is social media. Now, a part of what I do here is active income that I actually earn by coming on here, having conversations with you guys, trying to teach you guys things, and basically making money from ads. But a big chunk of it is basically passive income. I've created over 1,000 pieces of content, and I'm going to address this here. People always ask me, Tommy, you have over 500,000 subscribers. Did you buy them? Why don't your videos get that many views? My videos were never meant to or created to garner a lot of views. That's never been the goal. My goal has always been to just make a piece of content that helps people. And when you make over 1,000 pieces of content, and some videos get millions of views, some get tens of thousands of views, but more than often they get like 1,000 or 2,000 most of the time. But when you do that for like 5 years, it's a long time. You get more subscribers every single month, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And then before you know it, you have a lot, okay? But the goal was always just to make a piece of content that helps someone. It's never to make a piece of content that can help everyone. I'm not one of those massive YouTubers. That's not really my goal. I really wouldn't find a lot of enjoyment out of those videos, because most of the time they're very repetitive and they're very like engaging, but they're not very teaching, you know what I mean? You're not really learning anything. So I like these videos a lot more. I like what I do, so that's why I make them. But yeah, I make money from YouTube, the passive videos that I basically have on here, ones I created years ago that are still earning money. I also make money from the courses that I created. I created a course. I have a book that I wrote and I haven't published yet. I should probably get to that. I also have affiliate marketing, which I don't do. I can make money from brands and ads, which I don't do. You see, I told you, I'm not like your average YouTuber. Like, I really enjoy what I do here, and I'm really happy with enough. I'm not here to try to squeeze this lemon until I can't squeeze any further. I really just enjoy what I do here, and I really do mean that, and that's very hard to believe, and I understand that perspective also. But number 4 is one of my biggest investments in a way that helped me so much when it came to creating like passive income and so on, and being able to focus on quality versus quantity and not trying to make so much money and so on, was the reduction of, well, I would say like this, I would say cost reduction investment. And what that basically means is invest in money so you need less money. And let me explain. So I don't have any debt. So that basically means I'm not tied to anyone. I don't have to make 20 videos because I need to pay someone money. I don't have to do that. I don't have a car currently, but I do have a budget to pay cash for a car. I don't have a house currently, but I do have the cash to buy a house fully in cash. How do I know that? I owned a house last year in Puerto Rico and I sold it. It's a pretty cool feeling, you know, when you kind of try to build a life where you don't have that many tides in a way, like financially. So you're able to do things out of a lot more enjoyment. There's always a sense of, obviously, there's not going to be always like enjoyment with everything you do. There's always that you have to keep working in a way, and you do have to earn money in a way, but it's a lot less when you're doing it like this, okay? And just for perspective wise, I have cash to buy a home, but I don't have like $300 or $400 or $500,000 stashed away to do that. I can look at homes that cost $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, maybe even a little bit more. But I'm not trying to buy a mansion for the most part. I have cash to buy a car, but I don't have the cash to buy a Lamborghini Urus, you know, or a Tesla Model X or a Y or 3 or a truck now. I'm not interested in those things, and that's not where I would spend my money. But I have some cash to buy maybe like a Toyota Sienna or a Honda Odyssey. Those are minivans, by the way, because I plan on having kids in the future, God willing. So when I'm thinking about the things I really want to own in the future, I don't think about like, if I own this, will this give me status? Will this make me look better? Will this allow me to fit in with the people around me? I don't care. I care about, for example, is this a necessity? Do I need it? Does it fulfill some need? And that's a constant battle because I am a very materialistic person, and I do know that. So it's a constant battle of like push and pull and trying to say, don't do that, you know? So yeah, those are my main sources of income. There are still some that I can basically grow, but for the most part, it's just really those 3. It's just stocks, it's interest that I make, and it's also, for example, by the way, if you're probably wondering like, what about your high yield savings? I do make something from that, but it's nothing crazy, you know? I might make maybe like 100, maybe like $200 a month from that, okay? But it's money that I have that's basically just parked there for now. But yeah, that's basically it. And I have like passive income from certain videos that I have on YouTube, but that's basically it, you know? So that's it, guys. It's not that complicated. What I've learned is that yes, you hear statistics that people that are rich have like 7 to 12 to 13 sources of income, but the less wants you have by trying to pay things off, have no debt, the less technicalities you need to obey and to do. And that's basically what I've learned. I do have retirement accounts, but that's also included like in stocks and stuff like that. But for the most part, that's basically it. Yeah, I told you, I'm not that crazy like the other YouTubers in a way, or that exciting. But that's it, guys. And I hope this plan can actually help you. So to kind of reiterate, just try to have all your bills and just multiply them by 25, the annual cost. And that'll tell you how much money you need in stocks to actually complete that. And that'll put you into perspective when it comes to, hey, maybe I don't need to rent a $2,000 per month apartment, you know, because just for fun here, before I leave this video, $2,000 a month in an apartment is $24,000 a year. Multiplied by 25, that's around $600,000. I mean, that's a crazy amount of money. Well, if you try to pay off a home that costs $200,000 and now you're not spending anything on a house, just insurance, maybe like $200 a month plus the taxes, maybe $300, and you spend like $500 in your cost of living in a way, multiply by 12, well, now you only need around like 150K in your investments. You see the difference? 600K or 150 or maybe even less. That's the idea. I'll see you next time, guys. Here are more videos. Peace.